Something I really like in media is when a movie or TV show expresses the story and characters through action and symbolism, not through endless exposition. Show don't tell. Most things in visual media tend to pull this off, but at the same time fail and just do the aforementioned exposition. So, when a director manages to show, don't tell, it always stands out, especially when it's done in an interesting way. One anime film that does this in a spectacular way is Angel's Egg. It was directed by Mamoru Oshii in 1985, who would go on to direct both Patlabor movies in 1989 and 1993, and then the iconic Ghost in the Shell a decade later. If there's a theme both films share, it's existentialism, something Mamoru would go more into depth with in Ghost in the Shell alongside the theme of identity. What you get with Angel's Egg, however, is the themes of existentialism, reality, and questioning faith. And to reiterate, the film does all of this with little to no words, just through action and symbolism. The only time the film uses a lot of dialogue is towards the end, and even that's not very much. The film opens with a pair of hands, moving around each other. It then focuses on one hand, moving such a way that it looks like the person who owns them is examining it. The hand cracks its knuckles and it fades to black. The next scene focuses on a translucent egg on what it looks to be on a veiny stalk under some stormy weather. Within the egg is a bird. The next shot is a close-up of the bird's twitching eye, with the background engulfed with white light. This whole scene reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2001 inspired this scene in other parts of this film, since this imagery and overall feeling is always present. It's hard not to be reminded of the Star Child from 2001 when you look at the egg. Both matter deeply in the film, and both have a hard to understand meaning. With Angel's Egg, it's a bit easier because it comes at the beginning of the film and not the end. And once you see what characters think of the egg and how they interact with it, you come to fully understand it at the end of the movie. What follows next is a picturesque landscape with the first of our two characters, the boy. He stands in a checkered landscape with what seems to be some kind of machinery behind him, as a steaming metal ship adorned with multiple praying statues descends from the sky. There are a lot of shots in this scene that look like a surrealist painting. It gives off that feeling of something being unreal, but at the same time it's something spectacular to look at. The fact that the ship looks like a giant eyeball with the window serving as the iris pushes this point further, I feel. My favorite part of this scene is when the ship descends right before the dust and smoke pick up on the ground. I feel like this is when it looks most like a painting. A lot of other parts in this film also feel and look like this. The scene ends with the boy looking out of the ship, with the little girl asking, After the ship sounds its siren, the next scene opens up with a girl engulfed in white light. The moment you see what kind of environment the girl is in, you immediately know what kind of world this is and what her situation is like. She wakes up in a rundown room that contains structures which seem to be related to astrology. She was sleeping on a hard stone wall, and while yes, she does look out to a pretty landscape with a sunset, the sound effects give off the feeling that the city she's in is a dead one. A long, dead one. Although she's living all alone, she does care for one thing, a large egg. She doesn't leave it anywhere, even when she's scavenging for food, water, or just things to survive. She hides it in her dress whenever she's traveling, which I want to say is a symbol of motherly instinct. She cares for the life that's inside her. But the egg itself carries another meaning, that of hope. The film has a gothic or neo-gothic style coupled up with a world that feels like it's been abandoned. You could say it's apocalyptic, but it just feels like a dead world abandoned many years ago. Things don't really look super destroyed, or weren't really destroyed at all. The only other signs of life in this world is the boy, and the girl meets the boy in a very direct and threatening fashion. Once the girl goes deeper into the city, she sees a line of odd-looking tanks rolling by, and as they stop, the boy jumps out of one of them and looks towards the girl with a blank, cold expression. As a person who hasn't seen another soul for God knows how long, a random boy with a weapon jumping off an even bigger weapon, which is a freaking tank, would understandably freak her out. She clutches the egg and runs off, trying to process what she saw, only for her to lose the egg in the thick of it all. She stumbles upon the boy again, who returns the egg to her, but with him having his own interests into the egg. Now, it's at this point where faith plays a role into the film. A lot of people who've watched Angel's Egg say the boy is a symbol for Jesus. And while I can see this, the bandages on his hand, the fact that his weapon looks like a cross, I can see the connection. But I see the boy as a person who used to follow his faith so strictly that he fought for it. But now, after seeing whatever God he believed in leave this world a long time ago, he's become extremely disillusioned by his faith, and starts to see the reality of everything. Later on in the film, you see shots of fishermen trying to take down a large shadow of a fish across the city. As they throw their spears, they destroy everything they hit, giving no care to it, only caring about the chase. This is showing how chasing after faith blindly can make you unaware of the effect it has on the things and people around you. In this case, it's extremely negative and destructive. Now, it sounds like I'm being pretty anti-faith, but looking at the film, this all comes off as a criticism of faith rather than the outright dismissal of it. Before the film was made, Mamoru Oshii had actually lost his faith in Christianity, which makes the themes of the film more understandable. Who wouldn't criticize something that gave direction in their life once they lose faith in it? And this doesn't only stop at religion, it could be anything you believe in. You get angry, question everything associated with that idea and those who follow it. Or get sad and see no point to anything. This is why the movie has a lot of existential tones in it. Questions like, why do I exist and what am I doing this for, what's the end point, are things that'll come up once you lose what you believe in. Although he doesn't believe in his faith anymore, he has a burning desire to know what's in the egg. He probably thinks that there's nothing in there, but he needs to see it with his own eyes because he's done with believing. Near the end of the film, the boy talks about the story of Noah's Ark, where God destroyed everything on the earth with a flood and only Noah and his animals were left. In the story, he spoke of a dove that was sent out to see if the waters had receded, only for the bird to never return. They waited for a long time. They forgot where they were going, where they went, and ultimately became stoned because the bird just never came back to tell them. Did it just fly away? Did it get too tired and fall into the ocean? No one knows. Once the boy is done with the story, the girl tells the boy that that bird exists and takes him down to a room. What she shows him is a large stone fossil of a bird with human features, which surprises the boy. The girl insists that the very same bird is going to hatch out of that egg, and that she's going to put it back onto that wall. The girl has blind faith in the egg, especially in the eyes of the boy. She doesn't know that a bird will hatch out of the egg, or anything for that matter. But she still clings onto the faith and hope, which only makes the boy question it even harder. He knows what blind faith can lead to because he's been down that road, so he wants nothing more than to open up the egg to truly know what's inside, to be at peace, but to also prove to the girl that you just can't have blind faith in everything, even if he doesn't directly tell her. Once the girl is asleep, the boy gets the butt of his gun. He thinks to himself for a moment, telling himself what he's doing is right, and thrusts into the egg. Once he breaks the egg, the movie shows shots of the abandoned city, flooding. The girl wakes up, looking exactly like she did in the beginning of the movie. She looks around to see that the boy isn't there, but more importantly looks for the egg. She finds the egg, cracked open. At first, she's filled with excitement, hoping that the bird was now born, but after seeing that there was nothing in there, she lets out a scream of despair. At first, I thought she let out a scream because the boy had killed the bird inside, but you can also interpret it as her screaming because nothing was inside the egg, crushing her faith and hope that she had. In what was possibly an act of denial, the girl runs to the boy to get some kind of answers to what had occurred, only for her to fall inside a recently formed river and create thousands of eggs across the landscape from her possible corpse. At the end of the movie, the boy stands by a beach. The ship we saw in the beginning of the movie comes down once again, but with a new statue on it, that of the little girl. The last shot of the film is with the camera panning out, showing where the story took place. Where it took place was on the underside of a boat, or in this case, an ark. This is when you realize that the whole movie was taking place in a world where the flood in Noah's Ark occurred, but God never came back to return the land. He just left. He just abandoned this world. Sure, the people in this world made the most of what they had and created a small civilization from the boat, but it didn't stop the eventual decay of the world they were in. What you can say happened is that everyone lost their faith and found it hard to find meaning in their lives, only leaving the boy at the end of the movie. Since the girl became part of the ship, I want to say that the ship represents heaven since the girl did have some sort of faith until the end. But seeing that this world's possible heaven is living as eternal proof of your faith, seeing the boy look at it as it's just not worth it just shows how bleak and without hope this world is. I mean, normally you would just form your own path, but it doesn't even seem like that's really that possible anymore. This world's decaying and nothing's really living anymore. What time do you really have to do that? Angel's Egg is a really interesting film. A lot of people have said it's more of an experience or animated art than a true movie with a story. While I can understand why people think this way, it's sort of selling the movie short. There's a lot of symbolism and deep personal thoughts in the film. I feel like everyone has their own personal takeaways from the film, so each experience is kind of different. Hell, the director himself said that he didn't know what the film was about, so I feel like this is all just feeling. And if you're able to translate what you're feeling in movies, TV, music, and anything, that's the ultimate form of expression. Now, I'm not saying you'll catch everything in the first viewing of the film, I didn't, but I feel like after a second viewing, you start to catch some of the meaning. If you're looking for a highly symbolic and beautiful anime or just something avant-garde, using big words today, oh boy, or just something really different, I think you should really check this film out. You may not immediately get it on your first time watching, but it's still a very beautiful film to experience.